This message to you from the War Department in Washington. I am introducing Corporal John F. Barctek, age 23, of the Army Air Forces. He was the engineer on Captain Eddie Rickenbacker's famous flight from Hawaii to the South Pacific. With Captain Rickenbacker and the other members of the sturdy crew, Corporal Barctek was picked up after drifting at sea for 22 days in a rubber raft. The War Department has asked Corporal Barctek to tell American workers how the supplies they turned out saved the lives of 7 men when all hope had been abandoned for their survival. Corporal Barctek.
I'm glad to talk to you men and women working in our war plants. Before the war, I worked in a factory in New Jersey. I joined the Army back in '37, before we had figured out that it's just as important to be turning out supplies as it is to be fighting. I've been told you'd like to hear about how 7 of us with Captain Eddie Rickenbacker were lost at sea, and here's the story. The day our plane started on its Pacific flight, I had no feeling that we'd see much adventure. I am an engineer, in charge of all the mechanical sides of the plane, checking instruments, watching the loading, and so on. I remembered I carried 1 extra life raft back to the hangar 3 times. Someone else always carried it back to the plane. Seems like whoever it was had a good hunch. Not so many hours later, I was holding that life raft on a rough water beside our plane. We were miles at sea. We had 3 rafts instead of the usual 2. We tied them together and 8 of us crawled aboard. We pulled off and lost sight of the plane 20 minutes later. Captain Eddie Rickenbacker was in command. He counted our assets. We had 3 life rafts, and the pump and flares and oars that go with them. We had ropes and knives. We had clothes we wore. One officer had a pencil, and we scratched off the days on the side of the raft. We had exactly 4 oranges for the 8 of us, and I had the New Testament with me. In the days after that, we took turns reading the Bible aloud. With 1/8 of an orange apiece for the first 4 days, we didn't need much time to eat. We talked some, but Captain Rickenbacker warned us against talking too much. We needed our strength. The sun was terrible. The whole world seemed to be water and sun. 2 of the men were ill, and we could see that they were getting worse. We welcomed rain squalls because we caught the water with our shirts and wrung it out. But cold rain didn't help the men who were getting weaker. On the 8th day, one of our men died. We buried him at sea and prayed. After his death, we felt much worse. I mixed up on the days and nights after that. About the 18th day, a plane flew over, and on the next day, 2 more. They didn't see us. Captain Rickenbacker said we'd separate the rafts and drift off 3 separate ways. Then one of us might be found. I guess you know the rest of the story. One of the rafts was sighted by a plane, and all of us were picked up. It seems to me that our rescue was like a miracle. Only it's a miracle that goes right back to the men and women in factories, turning out the tools of civilization. Stop to think that we were 8 men, lost thousands of miles from nowhere. There was possibly 2 or 3 miles of ocean beneath us. We came through except for 1 man who died. Sure, we had men along who didn't know what it is to quit. But we had those rubber rafts to keep us afloat. 2 knives, ropes, oars, and clothes. With just that much of civilization left to us, we got to shore. What I'd like to say is this. Our little crack-up was only important because it showed how a handful of supplies can save 7 men. Tons of supplies can save thousands of men. But I know you people have figured that out and are working as hard as you can for us. In the Air Forces, we don't mind a tough going when we know you're behind us. Thanks for everything.